clearly, in my field, in the field of literary research, what I value is research that combines a sort of theoretical leaning and some sort of historical, contextual depth. And I think, when I sponsor dissertations on both sides of the Atlantic, this is what I like, and this is what I recommend. I think researchers in the field of literature, but I would say in the humanities in general, should have a strong theoretical training and a broad historical expertise. One cannot forget that in literary studies, the only common ground between all of us is still philology, is still critical editions. Editing text is something that we still have to do, which we do not do as in the past. We do it differently from 2 generations ago, but we cannot ignore it. This is also what we have to do. And I think that literary scholars should all do it at some point in their career.
But from the outside, I see that maybe you maybe won that battle in literature, or at least, this opinion is maybe more prevalent in literature than what it is in, for example, take sociology. Quantitative sociology is now the prevailing mode of doing sociology. And whereas you have other very innovative thinkers and who have done works that isn't really now in the canon, who argue differently, exactly along the lines that you mentioned. For example, historical sociology, some people argue, for example, Pierre Guillaume argues exactly along the same lines, saying that you need to have theory, social theory of the state, for example, and you need to put it in research into context, that is history. But I see it more difficult to bring about this idea and to convince people in social sciences that this ought to be done. Although it's interesting that you really do have a parallel. And I wonder if maybe if there is a sort of the development of humanities as a global field, this would be a good thing in order to have a global debate. But I see it also, I see people who argue in favor of it. I see now a Center for the Humanities. For example, at Columbia there's a Center for the Humanities, and there are more in other places, but there are tensions with the specialists. Maybe the danger would be that humanities be considered as a luxury, and
that the humanities could be more and more, it will not disappear, but I think in many universities there are more and more adjuncts teaching languages, humanities. The tenure system is essential for research, for the dynamics of a field, of a discipline.
And so therefore, in order to react to this, how do you see how would you portray the humanist of today? And also given the fact, this might seem naive, but there are also new technologies, there are new ways of communication. I don't intend to say that this is going to solve all the problems, but it's a variable in the way people do their work. And I was wondering what was your vision of what a humanist could and should be, and given the fact also that, of course, you are surrounded by PhD students and young scholars. If you have suggestions to give them, and if you see some potential that could be developed in this redefinition of
Of
humanism.
Of humanism
And
or
humanities.
the humanities?
Well, all those concepts are connected. I mean, the humanist, humanities, and humanity.
I mean, what I always liked in American universities, it's their civic humanism, the notion that they have a role to play, that the common good is an important notion in American universities. All American universities are in a strong relationship with the state, the city, the federal state, and the local state. I mean, we see after each election and when a new administration is in place, like the Obama administration a couple of months ago, you see this movement, people returning to the university and people leaving the university, coming from Harvard to Washington. And, so this is something that you do not see in France, where the universities are apart from the administration, what is called the administration in English, from the government in France. So the reason why the probable reason why I went to an American university in 1985 when I left France was, and I had no plan to come back for a number of years, was sort of insatisfaction with being an academic in France, meaning being a free rider, what is called a free rider in the union.
Yes.
And it is true that the role of the American academic, from that point of view, is much more satisfying.
It's
and
more proactive.
What?
It's more proactive.
Yes, and for many years I was very satisfied with that. So, of course, when I came back to France after a number of years in the United States, I had to find other ways of not being a free rider on the French academic scene, I would say. I mean, I would be happy to see them more in the role of advisors and being present in the administration.
Well, some people here at CME do that, and Sciences Po does that, although it has been criticized for doing this, but that's a bigger question and another question. But going back to politics and government, and in your inaugural lesson at the Collège de France, you developed this idea that literature is a crucial element in the development of culture, and especially national culture.
Mm-hmm.
And also you've written on the Troisième République, on the Third Republic. Now there's another way of looking at this question, is that many argue that there is, and there has been for some time, a cosmopolitan literature. That is, writers who are or were cosmopolitan and that have helped developing a cosmopolitan mindset. And what is you've analyzed, and you pointed out very sharply, I mean, this connection between literature and national culture, and when you say participating to the administration, that also participating to national culture. But how do you see another role of writers and academics and intellectuals in a wider scene, that sphere that crosses national borders? I mean, also beyond the postmodern talk and vision of cosmopolitanism. What is your your view?
Well, on first thing I would say is I have the feeling that French academics, if I speak of the issue of academia and the issue of literature, the French academics, I would say, are more today, are more isolated on the global scene than other academics, which is surprising, but it has to be said. French academics are more isolated than German academics, Dutch academics, Italian academics. If you go to the Wissenschaft College in Berlin, there are not enough French academics. One of the reasons is probably because French academics tend to still use French as a language, while most other academics worldwide have shifted to English, publish in English. If you go to Amsterdam, most courses are taught in English. If you go to Berlin, most courses will be taught in English. So, let's say the global academia speaks English.
Well, at Sciences Po, some courses are taught in English. I teach in English, for example, but Sciences Po is an exception.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
in France.
Yes, there are a number of exceptions, of course, but so, of course, I would be tempted to say that French academics should be more present on the global scene. At the same time, it's not all good, it's not all great what is taking place on that scene.
Because is that really cosmopolitanism, the fact that you have to write in English? I mean, this can also be an impoverishment.
Absolutely, it can be an impoverishment, and it's not very literary English in any case, it's an impoverishment of English. So it's, as one thing, it's one has to be ambivalent about those issues. We might also gain from not being totally on that global academic scene on some issues.